Welcome to The Pivot, stories of people who made a change. My name is Andrew Osenga, and my guests today are Jason and Rhonda Halbert. They are married, as you can guess. Jason is the music director for Kelly Clarkson on her TV show. Whenever she's on any late night show or anything, he's always there playing piano or keyboard for her. He was also the keyboard player for DC Talk and the founding member of Sonicflood, if you remember that band. So he and his wife, Rhonda, started writing books. They have released the first book of The Good Pasture Chronicles, and it's called Caretaker. And the audiobook just came out, and I was listening to it, and it is so cool. It's not just one person reading it. It's got all kinds of voices, voice actors. One of the guys from Lost is an actor on it, voice actor on it. Amy Grant is a voice actor on it. Kelly Clarkson is a voice actor on it. It's got like sound effects and the whole deal. It's like a radio play. It's really cool. And a great story, which makes a lot of sense because they are great storytellers, as you're about to hear. We have some things in common, some cancer stories, some stories of sort of major house issues, but theirs are kind of crazy dramatic, like shockingly dramatic. They have been through trauma after trauma after trauma, and yet when you talk to them, they are just so full of life and joy. And I just found this such an engaging conversation, and I know you will too. Also, for those of you who are watching this on video, you might notice that the background looks a little different. I've just torn apart the entire studio because I'm leaving first thing in the morning to drive down to Birmingham, Alabama, because we're about to make the live album for Anchored Hymns. And everything is in a pile. It's a total mess down here. The guitar thing that is usually here is gone, and there's just microphones and cables everywhere. It's a hot mess. My camera's gone that I usually use. Everything's gone. But I wanted to make sure that we got this episode out on time because I'm trying to be consistent. And I knew that you guys need to hear this amazing conversation with Jason and Rhonda Halbert. Well, Jason and Rhonda, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so honored and glad to get to talk with you.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you.
Before we begin, I've totally read up on you guys. I'm in the middle of the first book right now. I was hoping to get to finish it, but it was Thanksgiving when we're recording this, and my kids were home from college, and I just didn't get to finish it. But I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's amazing. So I'm gonna ask you about that when we get there. But first, we have a lot in common as we get into this conversation. But we have a cancer story in common. We have our house is flooded. Your house is flooded. We've had music careers that have turned into author careers. So there's a lot of things that I think we have in common that I'm really curious about. But Jason, I know your story is kind of more public. You're on TV, you've been on tour. And so Rhonda, I thought maybe we could start with you and your journey. I'd love to hear, where did you grow up? What did you imagine that your life was going to be like as a kid?
I grew up in a small town in Texas called Nederland, Texas. It's right outside of Beaumont, Texas, which is where he grew up.
Okay, yeah.
And we ended up going to church together. So we've actually known each other since we were in children's church. And we
You
started,
are kidding.
yeah, we started dating in 8th grade. And then we got married when we were 18. So,
No.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
How old are your kids now?
30 and 27.
yeah,
Okay.
we have adults.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Wow.
So as a child in my future, I knew that Texas wasn't the place for me. I never really fit in. And music was always a huge passion, and that's what Jason and I connected on, was music. He was ridiculously talented even back then as a kid, and I saw that. And I just knew I wanted to be a part of it, and he wanted to be a part of it. So our plan was to get married and to go to Belmont University and go into our music careers. Jason didn't have a plan to play music. He wanted to be on the business side, and I've always wanted to be on the business side. I wanted to be an artist manager, which I ended up doing. But I just knew Jason's talent was too ridiculous to hide it under a bushel. So I kind of pushed him out there, and
Children's church reference.
I know. So I kind of pushed him into an audition. So in my mind, and this is just for you said from my perspective. So in my mind, I always knew he would play music, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so I just planned my life that way. He probably didn't always think it that way, but that's the way that I saw it. So yeah, so we ended up going to Belmont, and he went the route of music, and I went the route of music business, and started raising my kids, and homeschooling them, and Jason started touring, and so we did whatever we could to, be with him as often as we could. So I don't wanna overspeak on this, so you can ask Jason or
You guys went to Belmont when it was like old school Belmont, like
Yeah.
little Belmont.
Yeah,
Mhm.
little cheap Belmont or
Yeah,
cheaper.
affordable.
Affordable. Yeah, we started school there in '93, and
Mhm.
Okay.
we were actually engaged and planning on getting married before we moved, but we actually moved up our wedding by 6 months so that we could apply for financial aid at Belmont just to
That's
afford there.
amazing.
Um, yeah, and if any Belmont listeners out there, we were there when Bob Malloy was there, and it was kind of the golden days of Belmont. And I lasted 6 months. I failed studio electronics, which is ironic. Did great
I,
in copyright law, but
I,
yeah,
I went
failed.
for a year. I got a D- in intro to music theory. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
seems to be a trend, and so it's like it's a guaranteed way to make it in the business is to fail at Belmont. Um, and the great thing, if you probably remember, is that Belmont had an incredible internship program,
Yeah.
and so I was interning at Sparrow Records back when it was Sparrow in
Yeah.
the public department, and that was we grew up on Christian music, and that was for me that was the heyday.
Oh, yeah.
It was Stephen Curtis Chapman. I was working with for Pray for Rain, Twyla Paris, like all these great artist, and Rhonda got an internship
True
at
artist.
True Artist Management, which at the time they managed DC Talk, and she snuck me on the audition list, didn't tell me about it, and I had no reference. To me, they were those dancer guys that opened up for Michael W. Smith. I was a huge Michael W. Smith fan.
Me too.
I knew, didn't know anything about their music, and I'm about as a little straight up white kid as you could get from Beaumont, Texas. And at the time, they were doing rap music. I'm like, what have you signed me up for? Like, if I was going to dream, it'd be Stephen Curtis Chapman, but not that. Anyway, auditioned, got the job, and left Belmont. And that dynamic of Rhonda believing in something, me not believing in it, her pushing me, that's been the consistent. I mean, any question you ask me about my career, from that to Backstreet Boys to Kelly Clarkson on, every one of them has that similar thread of me going, I don't think that can happen, and Rhonda pushing. So that's
Really?
and that will tie in later into even how we started this book. So
Really? Wow. So then you started touring with DC Talk like right away, like before they were
yeah, I
what they
started when I was
became.
19, and it was before I was the first keyboard player outside of K-Max in the band, Kevin Max. Wow, that just fell out of my mouth from I haven't really discussed this in a long time. So that was pure muscle memory there. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kevin Max Smith. Um, yeah, so I started, I was 19, so it was a Free at Last tour, Jesus Freak, Supernatural. And then sometime during the Jesus Freak era, started the band Sonicflood and continued doing that after Supernatural. Yeah.
Okay. This is a really random question. It might go nowhere. What was the first Sonic Flood show?
Technically, it was a Zilch show because we were a band called Zilch,
Yeah.
and it was at a place called The Church,
On
which
Third
was on
Avenue.
3rd Avenue in downtown Nashville
Okay.
during GMA week. And that was the first time we did an all worship set as Zilch. As far as the first Sonic Flood show, dude, I'm 51. I have no idea. That's like,
Okay.
we're in classic rock territory now when you're talking about those days.
Yeah.
And that been around your same time of, coming into music
Yeah. I
initially.
was in a band called The Normals, which is like a little one-hit wonder on Forefront Records. And I feel like we maybe opened for one of the very first Sonic Flood shows, like when Zilch turned into Sonic Flood. And I didn't think about this until this morning when I was like prepping for this. And I was like, it was like at some weird retreat in Florida. And I was like, I think we we're maybe there when that happened, and maybe I'm making that up. But anyway,
That's
doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
amazing.
that could definitely. And was Steve Hindalong in the band then, or was that later?
Steve Hindalong was not there, and I
Okay,
would remember that because he played on our first record. 'Cause we
okay.
were
Because I
major
know
choir
that
fans.
he produced something we did for City on a Hill or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
So okay, so Sonic Flood came out of the band for DC Talk.
Hmm.
I
yes, yeah,
forgot all that. Okay, and
yeah.
that
We
go ahead.
Yeah, they took Toby took a long time to work on records in a good way, and so it meant the band was gonna be out of work in between Jesus Freak and Supernatural, I
Okay,
think, somewhere
which
Hmm.
was
there.
like late '90s,
Yeah,
Hmm.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Mid 90s.
mid
Yeah, it must
'90s.
have been after Freak for Supernatural because Sonic Flood started around '98, so that's about when they would have been working on that.
Hmm.
Okay,
Anyway, so we asked if we could, we had this idea that people would love to go see DC Talks band. It turns out maybe about 15 people in each city actually would love to go do that. But and it was kind of, for me, it was kind of cool. And it sounds weird because I literally went from high school playing on the worship team at our church, never had a high school band that did anything, to a 4-bus tour playing arenas with DC Talk. So I never had that van period. And it was
wow.
all kind of romanticized in my head. And so we got an RV with Zilch and we toured around with a band called Silas, I think, and did the van thing. It was not romantic. We broke down. We had to buy new stuff. We were just talking yesterday, did the thing where we show up at a show and there's nobody there and we went to dinner with the promoter. It was a plethora of experiences. Yeah, but that led to Sonic Flood, and that's a whole another hour-long interview.
Yeah.
Again, initiated by Rhonda primarily.
How was that initiated by Rhonda?
Man, we could talk about this for hours, and you can probably relate. The touring industry is not made for families.
Yep.
Even if, I always preface, like, even if you're not struggling with the big three, I'm gonna call it, drugs, pornography, and there's something else that happens in there, infidelity.
Oh, yeah, cheating.
Those are that can be bred on the road. Even not dealing with those, just living apart from your family, raising children, having a wife, growing apart, it's just not designed healthily for marriage or any relationship for that matter. So we found ourselves maybe 4 years into our marriage having completely grown apart. And Rhonda actually packed up the kids in the car. She was going to leave. She was done and was going to go live with her sister. And her sister was going to school in Florida at this wacky revival called the Brownsville Revival. And she went down there and completely encountered God in a brand new way for the first time in her life. We were raised in church, but that's a whole discussion in itself. Encountered God in an incredible way, and had a vision for our marriage and how worship would play a part of that. And so she came back home after that, and this is in the middle of Zilch. And she came back home praying for me, that I would find God. I was so annoyed because I'm like, I can hear you in the other room. I know God. I don't get what this is all about. And she, over time, begged me to come experience what she'd experienced there. Maybe 3 to 6 months, I finally relented and went down, and um, it was like a 3-hour worship service, and I'd never found a way to communicate with what I believe to be God, combining music in that capacity. I hadn't grown up with that, and it really impacted me. And fast forward, the first Sonic Flood album, 8 of those songs were songs that I heard that night that Lyndall Cooley
Right.
was leading worship in. That's what an impact it was. So I say that she, it was her prayers and her vision that sort of really shifted my mindset into how I could enjoy what I was doing musically and communicate to God in a new way that I hadn't before.
I want to come back to that. Rhonda, will you tell me about that experience? What led you to packing up the kids? Like, what was that? What was going through your mind? And then what did you experience in Florida?
Uh, I would say extreme pain and loneliness. Like Jason spoke earlier, when you live a life as a touring musician, it can breed isolation and selfishness. And you get catered to on the road 24/7 when you're a musician. And then you have to come home. And sometimes there's an expectation that you get catered to at home. And that doesn't work when you've got two little ones. And your schedule has to bend towards the children. It can't be your schedule anymore. And so all of that was something that we were so young and naive and had never experienced before. And we just didn't handle it well the first probably 7 years of our marriage. And so that just pushed to isolation and pain and not understanding each other. And the weird thing is I never wanted him off the road. That wasn't it. It was just we didn't know how to connect when he was coming home from the road. So I did leave and I did pack up the kids and went down to my sister's. And for the first couple of days, she begged me to go to the revival. And I was like, no, you people are crazy. I don't know what's going on down there. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And by the third night, I just got annoyed by her. So I was like, okay, fine. And so I went that night and it was so powerful. Probably can't even put into words what the experience was. But if you've heard anything about the Brownsville revival, they lasted from the time church started till sometimes 3 a.m. It just was forever going. And so about 11 o'clock is when they started the prayer ministry part where the pastors would come out into the crowds and they would just walk through and just lay hands on people like this, like it wasn't even organized. And I saw it happening and I was thinking in my head, oh, dear God, please don't let him touch me. I don't want this, whatever this is, I don't want it. And I saw the main pastor, Kilpatrick, in the back of the room, and I'm so enamored by what's happening that I'm focusing and like turning around and watching what is going on. And so I turned around and I saw him, and from the back of the room, and I was on the second row because my sister stuck me on the second row. We caught eyes, Pastor Kilpatrick and I. I'd never met him before, but we caught eyes, and it was like we were locked in, and there were 3 to 4,000 people crammed into this church. And so it was just body to body to body. And all of a sudden it was like a sea parting. Everyone moved and he made a beeline for me. It was the weirdest sensation. And I watched it all happen and he was just right in front of my face. He said, do you mind if I pray for you? And I said, no, that's okay. And so he started to pray for me. And in my mind, I'm going, I just don't want him to push me down. Don't push me down. And I started to stumble and fall, and I'm trying to catch my feet, and I keep backing up and backing up. And in my mind, I have my eyes closed, so I'm not watching him, but I'm stumbling backwards with my eyes closed. And in my mind, I'm going, I wish he would stop pushing me, but I didn't say it. And the next thing I know, I hear him said, ma'am, I'm not pushing you. I'm not even touching you. And I opened my eyes and he wasn't. Now he had his hand forward like this, but he wasn't touching me. But there was a force coming at me, pushing me backwards. And no one was touching me. And I hit the back wall and I slid down the wall and I passed out for 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, it was a vision. I'd never had a vision in my entire life, never experienced anything like this. And it was a vision of Sonicflood. And God told me exactly what was going to happen and how he was going to do it.
Kidding.
So, I'm not kidding. And so I downloaded all of that and, just was a puddle of mess. By the time I woke up, my sister's pulling me up off the floor and I can barely walk. And, I'm explaining what just happened to her. And she's like, how are you going to tell Jason? And I'm like, I don't know. Cause he told me he would never do worship again. So that's kind of how it all started, where I was, as he referenced, as I was praying for him and going, God, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you've got to move on his heart, because I saw it and there was just no denying it. So yeah, so that's how it started.
That's wild. Well, and there was no modern worship music like we have today. There was no big Hillsong, Elevation, like that thing didn't exist. Like Sonic Flood was, Delirious was happening over in the UK.
Yeah, one of the songs we did was Delirious song, I Could Sing of Your Love. And looking back, now that I know what I know about music, I realize how naive it was what we were doing. Like there was no forethought. Like if I was trying to be cool, I would not have tried to rip off Third Eye Blind songs and turn them into worship. Like now I'm looking back on, I mean, I can name every song we did. There was no thought in that. It was just, I love this song. What would be a fun way to do this? Let's do this Radiohead stuff. Like it was the most uncool thing I've ever done, but it was the most passionate and authentic thing that we've ever done. And, we found out about, I'd never heard Delirious. To me, I Could Sing of Your Love. That was a song that Lyndall Cooley sang at Revival and Heart of Worship. That was
I
a
love
song
when
that
those songs, like, they don't come from anywhere. They just are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was interesting in the vision I heard the music. I saw it, I heard it, and it was like you said, it's modern worship was not there at the time, and this was way ahead of that, and it was so powerful, it was so moving. I'm not a musician, but I'm such a music nerd, and give me that wall of sound from the 80s and I love it. And this was that first time of hearing that wall of sound, but with worship. And it was so powerful in the vision. I was like, that's it. That's what's going to happen. And yeah, I think Jason thought I was crazy at first, but
What was people's reaction when you started sharing that kind of music, when you started introducing those songs to people?
the label.
Yeah. Again, it was it's almost embarrassing now. It happened the way it was supposed to, but it's like when you come back from youth camp and you're gung ho and you got to tell everybody about. I mean, we came back from that we went to, sorry, after that first visit, I came back, and at the time the band was Jeff Dio, Dwayne Laring, and Otto Price.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you got to come down here. So I drugged the whole band to a worship conference. Everybody was blown away. We sat down at Goatee Records. Poor Joey Elwood. We made Joey Elwood watch like 4 hours of VHS videos from a guy named Ray Hughes about the sound of rushing waters, which is where Sonicflood came. I mean, we made every person at that label, and we were just so excited. I mean, it was honestly such a place of naivety and joy and real, and and we're still friends with a lot of those guys. I'm trying to imagine what they must think.
Yeah.
I was definitely aggressive with it, so
That's
yeah. But
wonderful.
but at first, Toby. Well, I can't speak for Toby's vision for it. He he allowed us to do it, and Joey allowed us to do this entire worship record the way we wanted to do it. And I think at the time it was out of kindness. There was no sense of this is going to blow up or this is going to be great. It was just Toby genuinely loved us and wanted us to have that musical expression. So they gave us complete freedom to do it, which was very rare, and it ended up doing well for us.
Yeah. Well, okay. I feel like we could talk about this for a long time, but you guys have done that was a long time ago. So
Yeah.
catch us up, like fast forward for the next 10, 15 years. You tour with DC Talk for a while.
Yep.
But at some point that ends.
Yep.
How does that end? How did at this point maybe you guys learn how to be a married couple while you're on the road? And that sort of ends, and then you have to figure out what's next. I'm so curious. How did you end up in the world that maybe your next steps there?
Yeah, it's a consistent theme for us. It's a passionately go into something and then it fails spectacularly, go into something, fail spectacularly, and keep learning this thing.
Oh man.
And which is so hard to reconcile when and we can talk about this with music or with this house, and you believe with all your heart either God has led you or you're following something that you feel is right, and then it falls apart, and you're like, well, where did I mess up or did I not hear? Anyway, so Sonicflood has its arc with us. We did the album, a live album, and then there was this moment at we were doing a worship together conference. Man, it's so hard to. You're going to edit the snot out of this stuff. It's so hard to sum these things up because usually we're just talking about a book. When Sonicflood took off, and I'm really passionate about this when I talk with other artists. The first thing that happens is because we're successful, next thing you know, we're sitting on stage at worship conferences next to Vineyard worship leaders, Delirious, etc. At 22, 23 years old, trying to give our wisdom on all the things that we know. We knew nothing.
Oh my gosh.
There's this thing that happens where
my wife had an idea. Yeah.
I hate to use the word the industry, but whatever we want to call this, the thing, the machine, it's like, wow, this is going well. Let's put them up at a conference, and now we're all of a sudden we're these experts on worship, and that was a very unhealthy place for us as Sonicflood, probably for any human being. But we were at a worship conference in Franklin, Tennessee, at I think what now is Church of the City, and for me, I remember going out in the lobby, and it was my Jesus and the turning the tables moment. I was almost nauseous with the merch and the programs and the everything. And I came home to Rhonda. There was a lot there. I mean, it's hard.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I came to Rhonda. I'm like, you know what? I'm not a Christian anymore. I cannot be a Christian. I'm somebody who follows Christ, follows the teaching of Christ. I believe these things, but whatever word that means to the rest of the world, I can't be that. And I never, ever want to make money off the church again. And there was a lot that led to that. It's, to anybody watching, just seeing a bunch of merch, that sounds a little dramatic, but there was a lot that led to that.
I get it.
And we made a pact that we were not going to make money off the church again.
Wow.
And I remember going to the band and announcing, like, hey guys, man, Sonic Flood's been great. Let's finish up this live album and then let's just let that be. Like, this was a moment in time. Let's not do another album. Let's just go. A couple of the guys agreed with it, and one guy did not. And his wife was an attorney, and they came after the rest of us with a vengeance. And Sonic Flood exploded in a blaze of glory with lawsuits and legal junk, and we had a friend that offered us a really good amount of money. Two companies, Kingsway Music out of England, run by John Pack at the time, set Dwayne and I up with a production deal, and then another friend offered to cover all of our legal fees to fight and take back Sonic Flood. So we had a great lawyer. We were fighting. We had it in the bag. On the way down to sign some papers in downtown Nashville, I think maybe 3 times in my life, I would say that I felt the Spirit tell me something. I'm not that person. We're the Mulder and Scully of Christianity. So, but reversed. I mean, she's all in
Yeah.
and wants to see it all, feel it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And you want to believe. Yeah.
I want to, but let's deal with that later in the here beyond.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember driving downtown, and I felt like you can't sign this. You said you weren't going to make money off church again. You need to go sign it over. Give him the whole thing. Just give it away.
Wow.
And I remember I don't think we had cell phones then.
I don't think we
Yeah.
did, but somehow
Yeah.
we communicated.
I was terrified to call my wife and tell her that the very thing that God gave her a vision for, that we birthed as husband and wife, that I was just going to give it away and I was going to back down, and it wasn't supposed to be. And however I got to a phone to call her, that very moment she'd had the same thing, and before I could get it out, she's like, I think you're supposed to let go of this. So we did. We signed it away, and for me, that was the end. That was the end of our touring life. At that point, I'd already toured 8 years. I'd done 3 tours with DC Talk. I'd done the Sonic Flood thing, and that was the end of it. And I was just going to focus on full-time production. And so we moved to LA, not to be a part of music, but to actually be a part of a small church plant that was out there.
Really.
And during that time, Dwayne and I produced the Matt Redman "Blessed Be the Name" album, Tim Hughes' "Here I'm to Worship," and we were just going to do worship music. Sorry, production. At this little church we were going to, a friend of mine who ended up becoming a huge songwriter in town named Mike Busby. He passed away a few years ago. He was actually he was auditioning to go out with Nick Carter from Backstreet Boys, and he got really sick and said, "Hey, they're just doing a little TV promo run. Would you want to go be a part of that?" And so I showed up at this audition, and there were about 50 guys auditioning, and we only had one car, so Rhonda dropped me off, and I had to sit there and listen to every most amazing player in LA audition. And if I could have left, I would have left. Anyway, I walk in the room, and there's Nick Carter, Randy Jackson, Barry Squire, label people. And I walk in, and they're like, "Here's a keyboard. Why don't you sit down, just play and sing us some Stevie Wonder, some Marvin Gaye." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I do not sing. Like, I mean, this is my nightmare. I'm a player." And so I said, "Hey guys, I'm sorry. Well, I'm so sorry. I must misunderstood. I don't want to waste your time. That's not me at all. If you want me to put together a band and MD your album and promote that, then I'm your guy. But other than that, thank you very much for your time." And it was Nick who got it from the table. He said, "Well, come on, let's just jam." And I'd already done my research. I knew the songs, so I ended up playing his stuff with his band and ended up getting that gig. And so that's what kind of transitioned me. And I thought I was just doing a little short run of music. And that led to,
Can I just interject that the reason he got that gig is because the band knew him from Sonicflood?
yeah. So, but the rest of
Amazing. Was
the story was,
Lucido on that gig too?
no, not at the time.
Yeah, okay,
So,
okay.
yeah.
That's amazing though. Yeah.
Remember when came in. I'd met Lucido through Out of Eden with DC Talk, but I can't. We did some gigs later on, but I can't remember
Okay.
what that was.
Okay.
Um, and so during that time, that led to some more jobs where, from that time, w- we have not. I was able to produce records for free for people that we believed in, like Rita Springer, David Ruiz, etc., while making money elsewhere.
Because you
And
weren't
from
going to
that moment,
make money from
we
the
did not
church.
make money off the church,
Nope.
and that I can, like, we can trace those steps all the way to Kelly Clarkson, to now a 22-year career with her, which is unheard of in most of the
Yeah.
industry. TV show every day, post pandemic. Like, it's none of this would have happened if we had fought and held on to Sonicflood, because what reality would have happened is, we would have won, we would have fought it, we would have probably done another album. Who knows? It would have been mediocre. The tensions from the band, like da 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 da, and then I would
Yeah.
have tried to play the next thing. So,
You'd been
all,
squabbling over a van.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So all that came from letting go of it, and you would think that having experienced something that drastic, here's your precious thing, let go of it. Wow, look what came out of that. You would think as humans we would get good at doing that, but every single time that
Mhm.
happens, it's like it's the first time it's ever happened. And that's been my mindset through. We explore those themes in the book. My cancer journey, which we can get into later on. After our daughter was diagnosed with cancer at 16 years old, stage 4, went through a second deadly cancer. We thought we were going to lose her. We've seen her healed and cancer free now. And so you think, with all that knowledge, that my reaction to being diagnosed with cancer later on would be like, we got this. We've seen this movie before. No, it's the same human cycle over and over and over and over again. So that long story short, with Sonic Flood, it was one of those painful things to let go of. But had we not, would not have experienced all the things that we've experienced since.
Sometimes hanging on to something too long chokes the life out of you, and that's why you have to learn to let go.
Oh, Rhonda, what would you tell us about your cancer experiences? I know you guys have been through it over and over.
So when my daughter was 16, so it would have been 2014.
You guys were, and
Um,
you guys have been in LA how long at this point?
we had actually just moved back from LA.
Okay.
So Jason's
Okay.
job keeps taking us back and forth, LA,
Yeah.
Nashville, LA, Nashville, New York, Nashville. So we had just moved back to
Okay.
Nashville, and our daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 thyroid cancer at the end of 2014. And every phone call was really rough. The doctors kept discovering more and more and more, to where we never got any hope and we didn't get any good news after multiple surgeries. Her second surgery, they sliced her all the way from the back of this ear all the way around to the back of this ear. So literal decapitation and pulling the skin up, and the cancer was all the way around her clavicle and neck and up into her ears and wrapped around her jugular. And like, it was bad. In the first surgery, they missed all of that. The second surgery, they went back for it. And the day before that second surgery, the doctor called and said, "I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what's going to kill her first. I don't know if it's going to be the cancer, or if it's going to be this surgery. This surgery is going to take over 12 hours. And I'm just telling you right now, and you need to make the decision of how do you want to do this surgery. We can reduce it to where we cut her from here to here and only do half of it and then come back and do the other half later, or we can do it all." He goes, "I don't know what to tell you." I've never had, most surgeons are arrogant and they know what to do, right? And he didn't. He was just like, I don't. This is on you and Jason. You need to make this decision before you show up tomorrow morning. And we were like, great, thanks.
What did you decide?
Now, here's the horrible part. We showed up at the hospital, got her checked in, and she's laying on the operating bed, being ready to roll in. And the doctor rolls in, and he says, "So, what did you decide?" And all I could do was cry. All Jason could do was cry. We sat beside our daughter, holding each of her hands, and just wept. Oh, I can't talk about it. And it's you're making a decision of are you going to make that choice that could kill her? Okay, great, thanks. So I just couldn't. I just cried, and my 16-year-old daughter sat up in the bed and she said, "We're doing the whole surgery. We're doing this in one take. I'm not coming back." And I was like, "Okay, okay, that's what we're gonna do." So that's what they did, and she was in surgery for over 12 hours, and, they called us every hour to update us on her status, and, she made it through. It was a horrific, horrific surgery, and it was a horrific recovery. But they got it all, as much as they could, and then, at the end, they had to do, an adult-sized amount of radiation. They gave her the little black pill to kill her well, she didn't even have a thyroid left, but just to kill any thyroid material in her body left is considered cancerous. So they had to do that, and the first time, when they gave her the pill, they gave us, again, the option. They said, "You could either recover here in the hospital because she's gonna be so radiated, or you can take her home." And I was like, "I'll take her home." And they said, "Okay, for 15 days, you cannot go into her room. You can only fix her food, put it at her door, knock on it. You need to go back downstairs and let her know that her food is at her door. You cannot be near her because she's radiating so much it could have killed me." So, yeah, that's what we went through the first time. We did that,
It's
cleared
the
the
most
cancer,
intense thing I've ever heard of in my life.
and I just gave you the short version. Yeah, it was very, very traumatic. And then 4 months later, when the doctors gave her the, "Hey, you're all good. No more cancer is showing up. You're clear. This now you get to start your life over." 4 months later, she got diagnosed with a second completely separate cancer. So she ended up, with stage 2 melanoma at 18 years old, and Vanderbilt Children's Hospital had never seen melanoma on an 18-year-old in the children's department. So they moved her over to the adult center oncology, and they had 40 different doctors study her and the sample of skin that showed the melanoma, and it was almost divided 50-50 on what to do. Nobody knew what to do, and for precautions, they just decided, "You know what? We're just gonna go in and we're gonna take a big chunk of her tissue, her skin, her muscle." Like, they just weren't gonna risk it anymore because she was 18, and they thought, "She already had 1 cancer, so what is going on here?" And so, the day of that surgery, they told us, "Okay, this is gonna be about 6 hours, and they're gonna take skin from her hip, and they're gonna regraft and rebuild, and, it's gonna be a bit." And here's where the miracle happened. Was she came out of the surgery, and they all decided that they didn't have to take as much as they were going to. They didn't do the skin graft, and they took another sliver of that skin that they took and studied it, and the cancer had actually disappeared. So, 2 miracles happened in her life. 1, God used medicine, and she is cured of that thyroid cancer. 2, God also created a miracle where they knew there was cancer. When they went in, it was gone. So miracles happen in multiple, multiple ways. And I think what we just have to do is we have to be willing to see them, and we have to be willing to walk through the hard journey to get to the other side, whatever that looks like. I spent those 2 years of that cancer, the intensity of that cancer journey, at my breakfast table between 4 and 5 a.m., crying my eyes out and praying before God and just saying, "Hang on a second. You gave me another promise for my daughter. You gave me a hope and a future for her, and I'm going to hold you to it. And I would say it out of anger, like, you promised me. I will not let you go until you bless this. I'm not going to cave in on this. You told me you were going to heal her. You told me she was going to live. You told me. And I would do that every single day because I couldn't sleep. What else am I going to do? And whatever it looks like for each person, you have to hang on. You have to hang on to whatever God is saying, doing, promising, giving, whatever it is. You've got to pursue him in the hardest, longest, depleting of your life journey, to get to the end, because it's on the other side where you start to see the miracles and where you start to see God is moving and God is doing something miraculous, no matter what it looks like.
Well, then Jason, a few years later, not a few years, but a while later, something happens for you. What is that? What is this?
Yeah, it's well, it's hard to put it in context without the years in between, but I'll try to do that. But yeah, the right after we finished our first book, which was a reaction to post Kennedy, our daughter's cancer, in 2020 and 2021, experienced so much trauma in a short amount of time.
Well, why don't we do that first? Let's do that first. Let's talk about what happened in 2021.
After Kennedy, things sort of get back on track for a while. We're relearning how to live without the fear of cancer being over our shoulders. Um, Touring with Kelly Clarkson, and that's going well. We've managed to find a new rhythm of what it means to be a family and on the road. Whenever my first show with Kelly was actually with Justin Guarini, who was the runner-up on Idol, and she just happened to be doing another show coming up later. She had a duet with Justin, and we were at a rehearsal place, and she's like, "Hey, I need to pick a key for this song, Grown Up Christmas Wish or List." I always get it confused. Amy Grant. And does anybody know it? I'm like, I know this. So I sat with her an extra 20 minutes and we worked on the arrangement for that. And Kelly ends up asking me to stay with her full time shortly after. And my initial response was, I'm sorry, I can't go on the road. I've had that era of my life. And she's like, well, what would it take? I'm like, well, I have to have my family with me. I can't go more than 3 weeks without seeing my family, and they need to be able to come out on the road. And at the time, she was 20 years old, no touring experience. So she's like, absolutely, why not? And for 20 something years, we've been able to maintain that as you know, as a musician, what an expense that is for the artist
Insane.
to leave empty spaces on the bus. We've always had 4 to 6 empty bunks for anybody to bring out their family.
Really? So that's like a
And we
touring policy for her.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yes, and it's not even a policy. It's just a given that families are welcome, families are encouraged. The whole thing when families come out, it's just like, oh, I don't want to be there for sound check, or oh, I'll keep my. I mean, even during the early Christian music days, even during DC Talk Time, like it was, man, we could have wild discussions about. My wife wasn't allowed on the bus. We were married, we had children, wasn't allowed because of how that would look to anybody else seeing somebody come on the bus, a woman come on the bus. I'm like, if you dissect that for a minute, if you're trying to model something, let's model keeping families together by having your families come on the bus.
Yeah, no, that's wild.
Oh, we so so we were in a new phase with this with Kelly. At this point, it's still hard. There were times even with Kelly where we were gone 300 days out of a year. I mean,
What?
gone from home 300
Yeah.
days. There was a 6-year period where the minimum I was gone was 200 days. But we were homeschooling the kids. Our family was traveling the world. We made it work for us as a family, and so doing that.
Your kids were
Pandemic,
literally raised all around the world.
absolutely. Oh yeah, and it's
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
I mean, as hard as it was, I'm sure.
And we've actually partnered with a new organization called Stage Wives that's helping families manage what it's like to be on the road, because we're very passionate about this. And when we sit down with families right now, it's easy to say, it's like, well, look at your guys' life. You're your work, you have lots of work, you have lots of production, you have stability with an artist. No, we were making these decisions when we were, making $15,000 a year. When we were working jobs when we came home, when we were in debt. We just, and it wasn't even a conscious thing. It was just, Dave Ramsey would be dying right now because when it came time between putting money in an emergency fund or flying my wife and kids out, I'm flying my wife and kids out. We made stupid
100%.
financial decisions to keep our family intact and stand by that 100%.
I'm hearing you say this. Literally, when we get off this interview, I'm packing this gear and driving to a tour bus to drop it off to leave on a tour. So
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I know the
Yep.
feeling. Yeah. This is real life. Yeah.
Yep. So 20,
2020.
2020, 2019, Kelly starts the Kelly Clarkson show at Universal in LA. So now we're moving back to LA.
2020, is this pre-pandemic? During
2019.
pandemic? 2019. 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
And we started the show in October of 2019. March of 2020, pandemic hits. Every touring musician I know is now out of work. Legends that I've looked up to my whole life, like the guys I read on album credits, are calling me, if you hear of anything at all, please. And we stayed in production the entire time through pandemic. That said, we lost about 12 to 14 people during the pandemic. Maybe half of it to COVID, other half just during that time. During that time, Rhonda's mother was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, and Rhonda was her caretaker for about a 2-year period.
Wow.
Ended up losing her. Lost lots of close family, close friends. Lost my nephew to a random gunshot. He was shot through an apartment wall from another couple fighting, just watching TV.
Oh my gosh.
So lots of, and I'm very aware that everybody's had loss in their life, so it's not like ours is any worse. We just experienced a lot of it in a very short period of time, back to back to back to back. Rhonda's mother, all these people. I always say it's like in Back to the Future when you're looking at the Polaroid and people are just disappearing out of our lives. Stack that on top of that, when you're going through trauma, the natural thing to do is to rely on community. Well, community has been taken away, church has been taken away, joy, travel, food, like all these things are now gone.
Yeah, all you have is like Tiger King on Netflix.
Exactly. So during that time, now 2021, people are just starting to tour again. So I'll do my first show post-pandemic or mid-pandemic with Colby Calais, and we're doing a show in Utah. It's my first live show in maybe a couple of years, and I get home to the hotel that night, and our home in Nashville is flooding. Radnor Lake, we're off Otter Creek, so Radnor Lake
I walk
overflowed.
Radnor every day.
So we're in the corner, our house is in the corner of Otter Creek and another creek,
Yeah.
and Otter Creek overflowed, the two creeks combined,
Oh.
and our house. So that just felt like the final, not to minimize it, but also lost our chickens, lost our bees, lost our, everything.
And then we lost your
Yep.
mom.
And then I lost my mom to a brain tumor during that time.
My gosh.
So needless to say, not doing well as a family. Everything is just, everything I know about life is just gone. And the home was the last straw. And
So wait, so you're in Utah.
Yep.
And how do you find out about the house?
We had a friend that was living in one of the guest rooms at the house, that would help take care of things while we were traveling.
Yeah.
She wasn't at the house, but we had some webcams, and she said, "I'm getting a webcam alert. You need to check your webcams." I get on, and there's literally a river going through our living room, just shoving everything out of the house.
My gosh.
Call my wife. I call my daughter. This is 2 a.m. Nobody's answering.
We're both in the house, but
They're
we're
both in the
asleep.
house. Yeah. Can't reach them. I tried for about 45 minutes. I'm calling my son who's in Oklahoma. Can you try them? We're calling back to back. I can't wake them up.
How long have you lived at this house?
This would have been 6 or
Well,
7 years at this point. 'Cause
yeah.
we moved here in 2014.
2014. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was our forever home. This was it. It's where our daughter recovered from cancer. A lot of memories tied to this. But I finally realized we have Apple Home Kit at home. So I just started flashing all the lights on for my cell phone in the house. Finally wake her up. She gets out of the house. So standing, I come back from LA, and the house is it's just rubble. when the water came through, it pushed some of the walls off the foundation, and we discovered that the foundation of our house, the house was over 100 years old, was so rotted, the house probably wouldn't have survived another 10 years anyway.
Really?
But our home was destroyed. And it was just my wife and I, and we were actually standing in a version of this room. So the room we're in right now, we've recreated our house right now. So we're just now in the new version of it. Um, I was standing in the rubble on these stone floors, and it was so overwhelming. And during that time of Rhonda losing her mother, me losing my mother, losing so many family members, during that process, death is messy for any family. And so during all that conflict, there were things we discovered in our family that our family foundation was also just as rotted and may not survive. And I remember Ron and I were just praying, and out of a moment of exasperation, I just said to God, okay, if we take on the rebuilding of this foundation of the home, this physical home, will you please take on the rebuilding the foundation of our family? And so at that moment, the physical and the supernatural became intertwined for us. And that was a big pivot moment. I mean, we've touched on sort of our faith journey up to that point. Up to that point, my understanding of the supernatural was we petition and beg for God and the supernatural to intervene down here in the physical. And there was this what if moment. What if, yes, but what if we could actually do things in the physical that might then influence the supernatural? And that was sort of the foundation for the idea of this book, Caretaker, and what came from there, and a shift in our mentality of what we were doing in our lives physically that hopefully could have impact outside of the natural, if that makes sense.
Okay, Rhonda, I'd love for you to tell me really quick what did it feel like to realize that you were in a house that was flooding? And then I'd love to hear about how you came up with the idea to write these books.
Yeah, so being startled at 3 a.m. by the lights flashing on and off was a new core memory.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Had to be
Um,
terrifying.
Right? Wake up in a stupor, and then I hear my phone buzzing, and so it's Jason. I'm like, "What are you doing calling me? And why are my lights on?" And he's like, "Rhonda, get out of the house. It's flooding." And I'm like, "What?" Like, you know how your brain just is not registering. And I'm like, oh. And so I turn and put my feet down, and I put it down into 10 inches of water
There was
already.
water in the room that you were in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was the furthest from the river. So that woke me up. And I had just gotten home from traveling with him. And so my suitcase and clothes are floating across the room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have any dry clothes. And, looking for the rain boots and, just chaos. And so I run upstairs to tell my daughter, wake her up. And I'm like, okay, get your stuff together, grab your computer, get your boots on, grab the dogs, go into Dad's studio, turn everything off. And like, I'm just, going down this list. Well, she heads to the studio. The studio is the closest to the river, and it was 28 inches deep. And so all the
It's
equipment that
just
was
toast.
just gone. Yeah. And it's, we've got videos and photos of how deep it was on her, went above her knees.
It just, oh,
Yeah, it was tragic. It was just tragic. Oh, so yeah, so we grab everything and we grab whatever dry clothes I could find, and we're wading through the house because like Jason said, this river was going through, and so we're walking with sometimes with the current, sometimes against it, and trying to get out to the cars. And Jason's calling and he's like, "You need to go move the cars. It's rising up." And so we had 4 cars in the driveway because we had 2 other people living at the house, and so I had to move all the cars, and I did them in a way to where I put mine first so that we could pack our car and leave. And we piled in the car with the pets and the computers and you name it, and I start to head down the driveway, and my son calls, and he's a meteorologist, and he lives in Oklahoma, and he goes, "Mom, stop, turn around." And I said, "No, I gotta leave, the house is flooding." He goes, "No, someone just drowned on Hillsborough. You can't leave, you're trapped." I was like, "Ah, oh, okay." So back the car back up, and thankfully, like our property kind of slants, and so all the cars were moved up to the higher ground. So we just left them all at the higher ground, unloaded again, trudged through the water, got to the second story, and tried to sleep until the morning and wait for it to stop. There wasn't anything we could do. So we waited until sunrise and then got dressed. And here's the crazy part. The electricity stayed on in the house the whole time.
I was thinking about
And
that. Like, do you turn the lights on or are you going to get just electrocuted?
well, I almost did. Thankfully, I was walking around in my rubber boots, but I could hear this popping sound. We had a deep freezer, and I could hear this popping sound. And I walked over to it, and I could see it was plugged in on the floor. Light is still on, and it's trying to work. Silly me takes my finger, go down into the water, and I felt the electricity on my finger, and I pulled it out, and I was like, wait, the electricity is still on. And I'm walking through the house, lights on and everything, So yeah, nothing cut off. So we had to get out of the water. So that's why we just ran upstairs and waited for it to all subside. And then when it subsided the next morning, it was just, I mean, devastation, like mud and just silt and, just it was destroyed. There was not much we could do. We'll put it this way, the insurance did not argue the payout. We got a full payout. So they were like,
They're like,
your house.
yes, it's definitely flooded. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No coming back from this one.
So at what
So
point are you like, we should write a children's fantasy novel about this? Like, how does your brain go there?
yeah. So the devastation just about destroyed me and Jason. Full honesty. Um, all the miracles that I just spoke about earlier, just like Jason said, your human nature is to come back around to doubt. It's just how we're wired. And I hit rock bottom, and there were a few days when I woke up and was so angry at God that I was just like, man, why'd you have to wake me up today? I just didn't want to wake up. I was done. Um, so clearly that's rock bottom. And Jason was there too. Our son was there too. And so Jason actually was doing one of the days filming, and Amy Grant was on the show that day. And um, Jason and Amy and her manager went to lunch that afternoon in between tapings, and they were just catching up. It's not like we're friends or anything, but they've crossed paths enough to go, how are you? How are you? And it was such a tender, intimate season that you can't ask us, how are you doing, without us bursting into tears. And so she did, and he burst into tears at lunch and
Very
told her,
embarrassing.
yeah, but
Amy does that to you. And then she stares at you and you're like,
yes,
why am I saying this stuff? I wouldn't tell anyone this. I wouldn't tell my counselor this. I'm telling Amy Grant.
I know.
Yeah.
She just there's that spirit about her, and she just pierces through with her eyes. And so she did that to Jason, and he just, cries it all out. And she said, I think I have an answer for you to help you. And it's called Saraset. And so the long story short, it's a brain treatment. We can talk about that another time. But it basically helps take your brain that's in complete panic and shutdown mode, and it helps to relax it so that you can go back into processing through your frontal lobe in a normal way without panic, and be able to process the pain and the grief that you're going through. And so
It's like a like a neurotherapy, like
yes,
sort of thing.
It's sort of a neurofeedback. It's your brain talking to your brain. It's your brain listening,
to its own
itself.
sound waves.
And then your brain talks itself out of a fight or flight state.
Yeah.
It's non-verbal. There's no therapy involved. It's literally
non-stimulant.
Yep.
It's really a natural, holistic way of being able to calm down your brain with no drugs, and very simple.
And Mulder and Scully here, she's all in, and I'm like, I was the last one to do it.
He was.
But at some point, you're so desperate, you're willing to try anything.
Yeah. Well,
what's it called? Saraset?
Saraset, like cerebellum reset. Sarah. Yeah. So my son did it first, and he had hit rock bottom as well, to where we were seriously worried, and it completely pulled him out of depression, got him back to thinking, processing. He had lost a fiance to a severe breakup, and just family issues. And like, it was just, we were all hitting rock bottom. And so it really, really worked for him. And so that made me jump in. I'll do it. And so I did it. And then we kind of had to drag Jason into it, but he did it. And this is getting us to the beginning of the book. And that is on his second day, he came home and he said, "Oh, I had this weird sensation while I was sitting there and the process was happening." He said, "I just started thinking about this story." And he starts telling me the story. Instantly, I knew something significant was happening. So I pulled out my phone and I voice memoed it. And we bantered back and forth for 3.5 hours based on the root of this story that kind of developed in his treatment. And that 3.5 hours is legit the trilogy of our book. We wrote it in our minds and with our voices, and I still have the memo within 3.5 hours. And so then we just took that memo and I broke it down into an outline, and we started to develop the book series from that.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It is wild.
So,
Yeah, when you out loud.
so what's the process of writing a novel together? Like, does one of you type and the other one's just walking around the kitchen? Like, how do you do that in a actual, like, what does that look like tangibly?
Yeah, it was well, we've never dreamed of writing. My whole life has been music,
Yeah.
and it started off with that conversation. And in my mind, this would make a great TV show. Let's develop a TV show. So Rhonda actually wrote an outline sort of based on the whole story. And she was meeting with some friends of hers who in the film and television industry. And a lot of people said, write the book first. I'm like, well, we don't write books. And keeping the theme of Rhonda pushing something ahead, she started outlining and started working on the book. And then every day, what happened, it was such an exciting thing to talk about. For the previous year, now I'm in LA most of the time. Rhonda's in Nashville. I'm working the TV show. She's still coming out every 3 weeks. We're holding up to that rule. She'd be there for about a week at a time, go back to Nashville. Um, so instead of for about a year, every morning conversation, every afternoon, it was talking about the latest death, the latest grief, what do we do in the house. So instead of talking about those things, we were pouring ourselves into this world. And initially, everything in me is going, okay, this is completely unhealthy. We're
Escaping.
escaping into this fantasy world instead of dealing with our problems. But what happens is you write from what you know. So the books are not autobiographical at all, but we put our characters in similar situations. And what we found out later after the book was done, we had a doctor therapist friend of ours um, who's actually using this book in some of his therapy sessions with others. Apparently what we did without even knowing it was a form of something called DBT therapy, where you're putting your trauma, you're externalizing it into an outside story, and then your brain can deal with it when it's in this other story instead of yourself. So without even knowing it, we placed all of our characters in the same similar situations and then watched it unfold how they would deal with those things. So our brain was processing our trauma through these characters. And apparently that's a form of therapy that's out there. So writing the book became very healing for us, and it became easier and easier to talk about the things that were going on in our life. So it turns out it wasn't full escapism. I still say we a little bit of escapism, but sometimes you need that.
Well, I mean,
Because all
yeah.
when we're taken away at the time,
Well,
This was just a safe way to
Yeah.
process what we were going through. Instead of running from our problems, we were actually putting it out in front of us and being able to look at it from a third person perspective and address some of our own issues through these characters. And so it would actually reflect back on to us.
well, I mean, reading and listening to the book, it's a lot. I mean, it hits a lot of the same beats that you've been sharing with me
Yeah.
now. And I know that there are a lot of people that are, reading these books, listening to these stories that are going to go through similar things because these are universal topics, right? Everybody loses people. Everybody goes through these, feeling lonely, having to leave someplace. I mean, the story opens with somebody, leaving and having to go to this new place. And um, these kind of universal themes. And then I love also that you've got the voices of these people who have kind of inspired it. I mean, you're hearing Amy's voice even in the car, like it's awesome. That's really sweet. So at what point then Jason, does your cancer come up into this story? And what is that?
Well done, because I lost our train and you were on it the whole time we hit the
Oh, I'm
station.
taking notes, Jason. I
That's
got, yeah.
So we get this whole journey. We finish the book in the end of December of 20 something.
23.
She's the keeper of the time. End of 23, finish the book, and it's going to be released in May of 2024.
Okay.
In January of 2024, I'm diagnosed with cancer. And
What kind, can I ask?
it's a form of teratoma, and it's extremely, there's only about 108 cases a year, and it's a cancer of the stem cells. So,
Gosh.
a stem cell is like a unwritten baby cell that becomes, hey, I'm going to be a lung, I'm going to be a kidney, I'm going to be a bone, and mine are all misfiring, and which complicates the treatments because chemo can't tell the difference between these cells and others, and so the only treatments are to start removing organs whole.
Yeah,
Going through it. So
it's pretty brutal.
So
um,
sorry, man.
so I knew something was wrong, and in typical male fashion, postponed it as long as possible until I finally knew I had to go see a doctor. And having gone through this with our daughter, sometimes one of the worst parts for us during her time was the constant waiting, a scan, waiting, scan, 3 weeks waiting, a thing. And I remember I called Rhonda, we prayed on the way. I'm like, I'm just praying we have a speedy yes or no. What are we dealing with? Well, we got it. Within 30 minutes, you have cancer, went straight to do the scans, and they were scheduling surgery that day. So we went, pow. However, without boring all the details, the first surgery they said is, if you're going to get cancer, this is the one to get. It's so curable, blah, blah, blah. You'll be out as long as it's not this one strain.
Teratoma.
Yeah. Bingo, got the one strain. So then the options for me treatment wise was a surgery that would 90% leave me unable to play music anymore, and the quality of life. There was a 20% mortality rate just in the surgery, and we talked to people. The quality of life. We've talked to several people who said I would rather have died than gone through what this means, and it's pretty. It's like
Gosh.
for me, worst horror movie imaginable what they wanted to do to my body. And I'd basically be the Hollow Man at that point. First thing on mind though is like we have this book coming out, and they want to do the surgery in March. I'm like, nope, we're going to postpone. We're going to launch this book. In my mind, I'm thinking if this is going to be my legacy, I want this to be my legacy. We're going to go forward. What that did was to go right back around to the beginning of Rhonda pushing things and then me getting it later on, is it gave time to find some, alternate treatments and alternate ways to go about doing this. Because I was like, I want to live. We're going to go do the surgery. And she was like, I don't think this is the story that God has for you. So let's take some time to figure it out. And so we postponed the surgery till June so we could launch the book. And that bought time for us to find an alternate path, which we did.
And
God.
now he is doing great. And by this coming January, one more scan, and the doctors can call him cancer free.
So I'm looking forward to.
Holy cow.
And so
What has the treatment been? What did you find?
We just did everything holistic that you can try, from red light therapy to oxygen chamber to high vitamin C infusions to you name it, ivermectin, fenbendazole, anything holistic that we could find. What we did though is we found another doctor that had an option to that type of surgery, the more horrific one. And Jason saw him and saw all of his reports and the surgical report from the first surgery and all of that. And he said, yeah, we can do this in a better way, an easier way for you. But he goes, I don't know. I think maybe we just need to hold off for you. I think you may be one and done. You might be good. And Jason was going, I don't like maybes. I don't want to wait, and I'm like, well, let's just hang here for a little bit. Let's see. And so far, I think that doctor was right. And then I think God just pointed us in other directions to be able to heal and protect and restore his body to fight back.
It's probably a combination. If I was to try to narrow in on one thing, I think it made the most effective for me was full body red light therapy. Because once I started doing that, that was the first time my scans my scans never they haven't started going better, but at least they leveled off, so things weren't continuing to get worse. So I feel like that's what's been the most. And so like we talked about, you would think I've seen miracles. I got this, and at some point, for me, it's like, well, you saved my daughter, so it's hard to ask for one more thing. It was hard for me to pray for myself, and that because this is coming off of having my mother died of a brain tumor, so all the prayers didn't stop that from happening, and so there was a crisis of faith in me as to is the wrestle of I'm not owed a healing. I'm not owed life. People die all the time. People around us have been dying. So it was hard to shift my mind into fighting for that. But
that's why you have partners.
yeah,
We'll fight for you.
yeah.
I love that.
And I experienced miracles in many different ways. I've never been at the church service where I've passed out for 2 hours. I've never had some of these supernatural charismatic experiences that lots of people I know have. I haven't experienced God in those ways, and so even the miracles of seeing your body spontaneously heal, haven't experienced that. But there were so many miracles along what I call miracles. One being, only 2 hospitals in the U.S. treat this type of cancer, uh, and one of them is in New York City at Memorial Sloan Kettering. Well, I was diagnosed 4 months after Kelly moved our entire TV show to New York City from LA. Like, to me, that in itself was a miracle. Or even with our daughter, I've being a touring musician our whole life, they don't offer benefits, so we never had health insurance. We just always paid what we could out of pocket and then leaned on the mercy of the hospital if we had to have a procedure. Well, when my daughter was diagnosed in cancer, what month that? August, September, somewhere? You're gonna keep
Yeah, September and
September.
April.
For the first time in our lives, I'd just gotten health insurance in June of that year. So to me, that's as miraculous as like a limb spontaneously growing. I was gonna say combusting, but that would have been
Oh, a different kind of miracle. Yeah.
so.
Wow. That's incredible. Have you had to slow down? Does it change your lifestyle?
It's slowing me down, which has been, it's been a little bit of a bummer. That's a hard thing to. Our family always jokes we call it the Halbert 110%. I feel like
That
I
just
always
sounds like you are a busy man.
yes, and I used to thrive off of that, and that weighs on me a little bit more. And that's what led me first go to the doctor. I mean, from my first tour with DC Talk till now, like I remember Free at Last, I would stay up till 4 in the morning working with the video guys and getting things working and like working on a tour. And you go into crunch mode. While I was getting ready for our first Vegas residency with Kelly, and the things I would normally do, I didn't have the stamina, I didn't have the brain capacity, the brain fog was real, and it was affecting my job, and that's what led me to go say, okay, something's wrong here. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
But yes, I need to slow down, and so doing podcast interviews is not on that schedule. But yes, it's still.
Well, thank you for making time. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, has that been a gift, having to slow down, or is it just a drag?
I haven't felt the slowing down yet because everything is happening right now. I mean, we just moved into the restoration of our house. It's been
Really?
a 4-year process to rebuild this. We're talking it's within the last 2 weeks that we're finally in here. So
It's been
processing
that long. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
that, and then um, coming on the other end of our cancer journey, as we learn with our daughter. And if you have a cancer story, um, a common thread is that just the emotional trauma of hearing the word and dealing with the thoughts go with that are actually more damaging, we feel, than with the body. And even with our daughter, it's the post survivorship things that can be just as traumatic as. So then there's a shift that happens when you shift from treating the cancer to processing what you just went through. So I'm just now entering to that phase, combined with the restoration of this home, combined with the telling our story in the book, and it's complicated.
We're still in the thick of our trauma. We're not completely out. And so sharing the book and sharing our story in the middle of it, we've always felt is really important, that we don't come out with the story going, and see, you can do it too, you know? we're in the middle of it, and we're still struggling, and we're still, still doing our Cereset treatments, and that's helped post-cancer as well, processing the brain fog and all of that. But yeah, we don't ever want to come across as we figured it out, but we're working it out as we're continuing to walk forward.
I think it's drastically changed. This past 4 years has changed the way we're processing faith. I feel like our faith is stronger than ever, but the questions we're asking about it are bigger than ever, and it's a lot. You know, nothing is a simple storyline. Everything's layered and threaded. So even my I don't know if we have a mutual friend in Gabe Patillo, but he was at our home in New York celebrating Thanksgiving at the same time that I was in my cancer journey, and I remember, so we're praying with his mom for him, and she's praying with us for me, and our journeys didn't go the same. Gabe passed away, and it took me. It was I finally had enough courage to reach out to him to try to talk about his journey and me. And it was a week later he passed away. So our faith is strong, and then our questions of how it all works is all jumbled in. Um, and so that's been part of the thing that we've been exploring with this book and this series is it's a new way of interacting with God than we have been.
Well, let's be honest. If you tied this all up in a bow, I wouldn't trust you.
Mm.
And I don't think many people would.
Yep.
You know,
Mhm.
that's
Yep.
that's the Christian music that we
Yep.
don't trust. That's that's those movies that we're kind of like, ugh,
Yep.
It's the real life. That's why people are resonating with the story of your book. Well, we haven't actually talked a lot about your book, and I know I've kept you for a long time. Would you give us just a really quick overview of what the story is and where people can find it?
Sure. Despite what we've said, this is actually a
It
fun.
is. It's a really fun story.
It was birthed in a place of trauma, but there's things that it's about a family that is drawn from the big city to a small town, is drawn to this mysterious old home that comes with a caretaker, and we don't know if the house is trying to kill them, save them, or save them something even more sinister than itself. So I'll leave it there. There's a lot of things that unfold after it, but
But that's just caretaker.
Yeah.
Servant then picks up. We leave a very big cliffhanger on caretaker, so you're welcome. And then servant picks it up 5 minutes later of the cliffhanger and dives into a grand adventure that goes back 3,000 years into ancient Mesopotamia, and it starts to dive into ancient bloodline curses and how that plays into the current family and the modern house that's happening right now in caretaker.
And the audiobook, because that's what I've been listening to, is fantastic. You've got all kinds. It's not just some one person reading it. You've got it's like a play. It's like an old time like radio show. Like you've got
Yes.
different
after a full-
voices and music. It's sound effects. It's awesome. Did
Thank you.
Did you do that? Did you have?
I did. In my naivety, I thought, well, I've produced songs and how hard could this be?
I was thinking the whole time, like, this must have taken 1,000,000 years.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't think about it when I started because, producing a 3-minute song versus, 15 hours of raw audio, it's like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into?
But he did do an excellent job,
It's
and we
so
do have
fun.
we have an Oscar-winning, composer who did all of the music and the original score, and we have Foley, we have, all these incredible actors. Eric Avari from The Chosen is playing Marshall, the main character, the caretaker. We have Henry Ian Cusick from Lost, we have Amy Grant, we have Charles Eston from TV show Nashville and Outer Banks, and, like, all these people actually said yes, and the first thing they said was, "Well, let me read your book first," and then they read it, and they came back to us, and it was emphatic yeses. And I think for me, being at the beginning of, writing a book for the first time and being an author for the first time, I was floored that people actually liked it and that they wanted to be a part of it. And so that whole journey in itself of hearing their take on our words was even more magical because everybody comes with their own experience and their own filters and how they see and interpret language. And to hear some of their phrasing and some of their background emotions that they put into our words, oh my goodness, I was melting on the floor. It was absolutely magical.
So fun. I just now caught that guy was from Lost. I was like, why do I know that guy's voice? I've bet the whole time I've been like, I cannot place it. It's been driving me crazy.
He plays Desmond.
He's Desmond. The guy from the hatch. I love it. It's awesome. Well, and if people want to find the book, where can they find it?
Wherever books are sold is the phrase.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Bookstores, doesn't
Barnes and
matter.
Noble.
We've got it out there now for everyone. You can also, if you want a signed copy, go to rjhalbert.com and order one from our website, and we'll send you a signed copy as well.
Yeah, and I love that RJ Halbert, which is Rhonda, Jason, Halbert. So great. Guys, thank you so much for your time. This was just a pure joy. And what I can see of the house looks lovely. You've done a great job, at least on this little corner of it. I'm sure the rest of it is beautiful.
Next time you're around there, pop over.
We're not far.
I'll be there tomorrow. All right. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
You.
Aren't they just so wonderful? I really enjoyed that. The Good Pasture Chronicles, Caretaker, go get that, go listen to that. Obviously, you can listen to Jason on like every album ever. He's just plays on everything. If you want to find my albums or my book, you can do that too. AndrewOsenga.com, my Substack. That's where you can find me. You can support the show by just being there or financially anything. It's all great. We're just so happy to have you here. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week with another great episode. And for now, go do something awesome.